I'll still think of Facebook as a website because primarily we still go to Facebook just to see if who's married and who's divorced and that kind of thing, right? But that's what Facebook is now. It's just because, oh, they're still married? Oh, damn it. Damn it.
Yeah, so this is called ATFUX, or ATFUX. So it stands for all things front end and UX. So what I want to do is just do like a monthly meetup where, front end developers, UI, UX designers, or anyone who's kind of interested in app development or looking to learn more about, these technologies to come and hang and let's just start and create a community. Because from what I've seen, there doesn't seem that there's that many tech events going on right now. Obviously with COVID, that's understandable, but this is just going to be another option. So I'm really, once again, I'm extremely, honored and humbled that each and every one of you came out to support. So I met Sani, 3 years ago at Universal Studios. He was giving a talk, just a chilled guy. And then I met him again. The next time I saw he was in Salt Lake City. We also met Ed over there. And then this is the third time I'm literally hanging out with you. So every time I've seen you, you give an awesome talk. So, no pressure, but. Sani's super legit. He's worked with companies like Microsoft, Samsung. He's like one of the leading Angular Ionic developers. He is leading because he was certified by Google as one of the best developers in the world. He hates that I mention this because he decided to leave his Google Developer Expert role or certification because he likes talking a lot of smack on Twitter. So that's the kind of guy he is. He's just super legit. So I'm gonna hand it over to Sani. He's gonna talk for an hour. Let's give it up for Sani.
Thank you very much, Kobe, for that introduction. It's crazy because we were just having this conversation about potentially doing this. So being here now and this is like a reality is very heartwarming. And you guys were crazy enough to show up, so I actually give you props for that, considering the short amount of time that I came in here on, what was this, Friday or Saturday, and here we are on a Tuesday, and we are almost filling up the room. So once again, thank you very much. My name is Sani Yusuf, and today it's going to be very interesting. We're going to be having a conversation about making apps. So I'm going to set some house rules quickly, right? The first thing I'm going to say is, I have a bunch of rules and I want everybody to obey them. The first rule is there are no stupid questions. There's only one stupid question. The only stupid question is a question that is never ever asked. That is the only stupid question. So at any point in time, I want this to be as open as possible, that you feel like you have a question like, hey, I don't like what you just said. Can you repeat that? Please just get my attention and we can sort of evolve this conversation very organically, right? And for the people in the room that may be scared if this is a too technical talk, I promise you we're going to hit the jackpot somewhere right in the middle. And so that's housekeeping rules, and that's just it. So you can see the title. It's a conversation about making apps with Sani Yusuf. Makes me sound like I know what I'm doing. I promise you I don't, but we'll figure that out. So when you hear the word apps, I think a lot of people have different thoughts that come, it just comes to their heads, right? Just roughly in the room, when you hear the word app, what comes to your head? Anyone, any takers? By the way, I'm giving Teslas for anybody that gets my questions right. Yeah. When you hear the word apps or app, what comes to your head, roughly?
Twitter app.
Say that again?
The Twitter app.
Twitter app, exactly.
Resources.
Ease, good. Solving problems. The reason why I asked that question, you can see how we just had maybe 10 seconds of question answering, but all we were focusing was on, most of the things that people said was about goals. Twitter app, I want to go do something, and he's on his Twitter actually. Ease, processes and everything. Ma'am, I forgot what you said. You said something. Resources, exactly. It's all about goals, right? And that's the interesting thing, because apps are, we use them to do things, right? But the interesting thing, whenever I speak to entrepreneurs, right, they're very insistent that they need an app. Like every time I speak, and I've traveled around the world and I've met different types, there's rarely an idea that someone would tell me that I haven't heard a variation of, right? But it's like, like I have this great idea, basically what I want to do, I want to build this app that is like Facebook plus Google plus Twitter plus Snapchat, but all in one, like people have all these ideas about, but they always, what fascinates me is they always insist that it's going to be an app. And 9 times out of 10, when they say app, they tend to talk about mobile. They tend to talk about mobile. Ease, getting resources, Twitter, these things. We tend to focus on mobile. Do you know why that is? It is because mobile is the primary way we access the internet, right? I know people that will go to work and forget their card. Or when I was at university, I know people that will come to university and not come with their card. And they would just take their phone and call a friend of theirs, like, can I borrow your card so that I can access? But I don't know anyone that forgot their phone and then came to school. No, they went back home. That lecture's done for that day. Lecture's done for that day. 100%. Because the reason why I knew this is actually one of the ideas I had for my final year project was to use NFC at the time to make your phone your access card. Because that was the selling point. We were like, we know that when you come into school and you forget your card, you just call your friend like, hey, you have lectures today? No. Oh, cool, give me your card. I'm going to use it to access the buildings. But your phone was more important to you. Why? Because there's this picture that goes around on the internet where it's a desk, right? Like in 1999, and then as every year comes on, the desk gets, like the stuff on the desk gets smaller and is replaced by an app on your phone. Until like now, where it's just like everything, your mail, your phone is everything. And the mobile phone is really how you primarily access the internet without most of the internet traffic. And the internet is basically like, if everyone here at some point has probably owned a Microsoft computer back in the days, that slow one where it logs you on Windows XP and then you click Internet Explorer and you keep clicking Internet Explorer and then like 5 minutes later, 79 Internet Explorers come up. Brrr, like we're all used to that experience. Everyone has had that experience. Why? Because without that Internet Explorer, you don't have a computer. Like you really don't have anything. Like most people, that's why things like the Chrome OS, as crazy as it sounds, is actually like they're selling. Why? What do? We turn our computer, the first thing we do is we go on Chrome or some browser, and we can pretty much do everything. Google Drive, whatever it is, your email. We don't really use, like, I would say desktop applications anymore, because now we have one app that kind of lets you do everything. So we look at it's interesting, the concept of an app, because Chrome itself is an app, but it's this app that is a gateway to other applications. So it's crazy. It's replacing all these other apps that you use. Did anyone use Encarta back in the days? Yeah. But you didn't pay for it. I'm pretty sure you bought the illegal one. I know because I did. I bought the illegal one too. Exactly. You had the CDs, Encarta 1, 2, 3, that kind of thing. But that was an app, right? That was an app. It was an app. Yeah. But it was an app you installed on your computer, right? And we loved it. Why? We could just dive in. That was the first Wikipedia. We could just dive in and find all this information, right? And I know some of you are probably at this point like, wait, this is supposed to be a conversation about apps. Why are we talking about Encarta and everything? And I promise you we get there. But the whole idea is, the concept of app is very abstract and it changes from person to person. Encarta is an application. But most people don't even think of Wikipedia as an application. Think about it. What is the difference between Encarta and Wikipedia? Not much. But you never really think of Wikipedia as an application. But you think of Encarta as an application. So which is right and which is wrong? So can you see what I'm trying to, the juxtapose here? I'm not necessarily trying to say one is an app or one isn't. You could argue they're both apps. Because there's nothing that Wikipedia does that Encarta used to give you that Wikipedia gives you much more information readily available just via the internet. So it's interesting. So when we use the word app, like I said, that concept changes from person to person. And it all comes down to what they're trying to achieve. Right? Because Chrome itself is an application, but it's an application that lives on your computer. But if I said Snapchat, that is also an application. What if I said maybe Facebook? People didn't think of the Facebook.com as an app, but then they're, oh, I've got the Facebook app. It's all about resources, process, access to information. That is it. So when you understand that as a concept of an application, that comes back to my question where, why is it that whenever I meet, especially entrepreneurs or people that are trying to solve a problem, the first thing is they insist that they need an app. I need it. I have this great idea. It is to order food from Accra to Tema, but I need an app. And I'm like, wait, you think you do? The people that are going to be using your product, they don't even have smartphones. Like, why are you so insistent? Because what we tend to do is we tend to create the solution, and we try to force that solution to find a problem. I call it luxury solutions, a solution looking for a problem. Look at me, I'm cool. And a lot of developers do this where they create really dope code. Like, oh, look at my code, but the code is slow, or it doesn't actually do. But the actual code is superb, but it doesn't serve its purpose, which is, back to your point, ease of use. So there's so many things that really makes an app an app. But one of the most important things is the user experience. Is it easy to use? Do you know why TikTok is so successful? Because it keeps people hooked. That's the thing. That infinite scroll is not a design like a bunch of psychologists sat down 10, 15 years ago and designed the infinite scroll. There's a reason why it's called the infinite scroll. Is the longer I keep you here, I'm making more money. Because I can track everything from your eyeball movement, from, oh, you were scrolling, you suddenly stopped on this particular post and you spent X amount of time. That is gold mine of data. It sounds scary, but this happens. This is happening to every one of us here. Because with that data, I can get way more information about you, but not just about you, then I can predict information about others. And that's why I tell people today, data is the new oil. Every company today, every tech company is just becoming a data company. Because that is where if you can generate data. And I'll give you an example. Has anybody heard of the website called Craigslist? Yes. Craigslist. So, I hope we don't see anything illegal here, but this is Craigslist.com. Hands up if this is the first time you've ever heard of Craigslist or seen Craigslist. Anyone? So before today, everyone has somewhat heard of Craigslist, right? Now, look at this website, right? And I'm saying the word website. Is it an app? Maybe, maybe not. Doesn't really matter. But do you know how much they make per year? Rough guess. 30 million. 30 million? Okay, how much in USD I think is the Ghanaian, like everybody's saying dollars. How much in dollars? So we have the $30 million. Okay, go on. Anybody else? 30 billion? They're not Davido now.
I'll say $5 billion.
$5 billion. Okay? No, right. 5 million, okay. So, the truth of the matter is actually the earnings of Craigslist is actually private, right? They have around staff of 40. But pessimistically, I think last year, the reports were that they made a net, or like generated a revenue of around $1.2 billion. Look at this website. Look at this website. This website has not changed since 1994. It is links, blue color, white. There's like 2 colors on the webpage. Do you know why Craigslist is important? Classified ads. I mean, there was a time you could even hire someone to kill your spouse on Craigslist. It was a big problem that the FBI had to get involved because a lot of people that didn't like their husbands or their wives were coming on Craigslist to look for killers, and they found killers. It was, classified ads. The founder is a billionaire. A lot of people don't know him, Newman. He's a billionaire. All he's doing with his life is just philanthropy. When you make so much money, all you can just think about is how to give it back. He's a billionaire. Most of the people that work at Craigslist, I'm pretty sure their day-to-day is just, they wake up, it's like, what are you changing? Think about it. You're a developer hired to what exactly are you changing? Right? That's it. But you know the funny thing? Yeah, but it works. Because it works on mobile. Because there's no fancy stuff, it loads like this. So you can see, it looks absolutely atrocious. But why do people insist on coming here? Access, ease of use, user experience. They are getting what they are asking for. Microsoft learned the hard way. Microsoft tried to change the way we use Windows to make it touchscreen, paid a lot of money. And what happened? Everybody hated Windows 8. You know why? That was when I worked for Microsoft. I was hired to make people like Windows 8. And I remember writing a blog post saying, this will fail. It will fail. I'm like, I'm glad you gave me the job, but whatever you're asking us to do is a waste of time. And that was my personal opinion. I was like, it's a waste of time. People are so used to using their mice for years, and then you think, yes, touching is nice. They're not going to do it. Not because it's better. It's just because human beings don't like change. That's the reason why Amazon cannot redesign their website. Have you heard of Linda Ikeji? Some gossip webpage. Every time I go there, my eyes bleed. But she's top 10 web pages in West Africa or something like that. She makes a lot of money. So whenever you are thinking of creating an application, do not, yes? Oh, I thought you were asking a question. Whenever you are thinking of creating an application, your loyalty should not be to the solution. It should be to you solving the problem. Think about, what am I trying to solve? Facebook, how did it come? Started by one guy creating basically Tinder. That's what he did. He created Tinder in his webpage, or Hot or Not, right? He stole a lot of pictures of all the pretty girls in university, and you were just rating. And that was it. And then from there, he was just like, well, what's the first thing you want to do? You want to see if somebody is available, right? Facebook's biggest selling point was the whole relationship single. And there was a time where, if you were dating someone, it wasn't official until it was on Facebook, right? I disappointed a lot of pretty girls. I could tell you that I disappointed a lot of pretty girls. I was like, how to come up with that smooth, no, that's what everybody's doing. We don't have to do that. Hey, I had to do what I had to do. But I'm telling they solved the problem, but you can see how from that one problem, it evolved now to what? Near $1 trillion company, right? That kind of thing. So these are the things that you think about when you focus on apps, is really think about the solution, what you're trying to solve. And when you do that, you will pivot every now and then, but you'll be pivoting to the direction that you're using. Amazon started off with just ordering books and some fruit. Today, look at what it is. It's the most valuable company in the world, right? So now, the concept of an app is not just, in today's world, is not just a web page. This is a web application. You know why? Because there's so much happening here. Back in the days, we just had websites, right? A website was you came, you got information, and you left. Today, we don't. We live on web pages. Look how many tabs I have. They're applications. They have teams. An app like Facebook, you don't, even just google.com, that homepage, you don't want to know how many people are paid and the amount of money they pay to maintain that. And the amount of testing they do, right? But of course, we're here to still talk about apps. That's what this says, right? That's what this says. And by the way, any questions so far? If you have any questions, remember, there are no stupid questions. Feel free to just shoot at me at any point in time. So, now that we've kind of made that case for, even when you go on the web, that is an application. You now start seeing that it's not necessarily about the medium. It's about the experience. Because today, I can wake up in the morning and I turn on Spotify from, let's say, let's say I turn on Spotify on my TV, right? Play loud TV, because I'm one of those people that I'm so stingy, I don't want to buy a speaker, so I'll just use my loud TV, right? I'm having a shower, Spotify. I get into my car, what do? I have Spotify. My car's got Spotify app. My music is just continuing the same place. I do this with Audible a lot, right? Okay, I'm walking, I park my car, I'm walking. I have Spotify on my smartwatch. I get to my, office, Spotify. The experience is what is moving. So the whole concept of the app is just facilitating that experience to make sure that it is easy for me. My watch is giving me a specific experience, right? And so the next question I would normally get is, okay, Sani, I hear you giving me all this background story, blah, 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 but I want one. I want to be able to create an app. I want to be able to have an app of my own that I want to create. Now you figure out your problem and all of that. That's where the question lies. Now, obviously, we're not going to spend too much time on just creating a web application. You can get a drunk person from the street that probably knows JavaScript and pay him maybe 20 cedis and he'll create you a website. It may not work, but you'd have a website pretty much. Or you can just go to Wix.com, all right? That kind of thing. So, but then let's focus on mobile a little bit, which is the primary medium for a lot of what we do every day. The thing is, you have to think about, first of all, how much money you have, and also the experience of your team, right? You have a team where maybe people have X amount, this is what they know, X, Y, Z. But the most important thing is you want to be able to choose the right technique to go to create an application. I'll tell you what, there is no right technique. Anybody that you're paying money is telling you this is the best way to create an app, that's someone you should never give your money. There's a right technique for the right time, for the right team, for the right amount of resources. It's just like a car. If you come into my car company or is it car lot? What's that place that they sell cars? I've never owned a car, that's why. Yeah, car dealership, that one. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. Have you got kids? Because if you've got kids, I'm probably not going to show you a Ferrari, right? It doesn't make sense, right? Maybe except if you have plans to kill your kids, but I'm not going to show you a Ferrari, If you're single, it's a different type of car. Also, if you come dressed a certain type of way, if you come looking a little bit broke, maybe I might not even bother showing you the Bentleys, that kind of thing. I'm not saying you should do that, but just based on how much money you have and the type of questions I would ask you, because I'm trying to figure out what is the best fit for you, because there's a lot of options. The same thing when you're creating applications. There are different ways. So let's talk about some of the few ways. So you'd always hear people talk about something called a native application, right? The term native. Now, what does that mean? So in 2006, Steve Jobs held the iPhone for the first time. He said, hey, I built this thing, the iPhone, very amazing, and you're going to give me your money. And people were crazy enough to give him their money. I think at the time it was $600 or something like that. People were crazy enough. They did, right? This was, for the first time, this guy just promised a lot of things. And there's one thing about that particular demo. You remember the demo? I don't know if you watched it. When he was showing how to use the contact in the first iPhone. Yeah, the scrolling. It was like, oh, you just do this. And everyone was like, oh. Yeah, and then he started deleting those contacts. But what you don't know is actually he was firing those people. Yeah, he was deleting the contact of the... So there were two teams that were trying to build the iPhone. And one of them wanted to take the Mac OS, shrink it down, which ended up being iOS. One of them wanted to take the operating system of the... what's the name of that? iPod, and make it iOS. So that team had more resources, but they didn't deliver. So what he was doing was firing them, actually. Yeah, he was like, oh, you see, I'm just going to delete this person. He was firing all of them. Yeah. Literally, he was firing them live on stage. This is a true story. He was firing them live on stage because they didn't deliver. Every single one of them. I think he did 4 of them from they were losing their jobs live on stage. He was sending them a message that, you're fired, you're fired. But anyways, story aside, that particular point, it changed the world. Because what Steve Jobs did is, he said, this is what you need. This is the future of computing. At the time, we used to call them PDAs, personal digital assistants. I don't know why we came up with that name. If anybody says, oh, do you have a PDA today? You're going to look at them like, what? What's that? Exactly. So that's what happened is, unfortunately, look, we have more websites than any other type of apps. Every day, the amount of apps that are created in one day probably is more than the apps on the mobile store that exist today in just one day. Just think about it. Every single day, the new blog post, all of that. It's crazy. So what happened was, Steve Jobs doing that, he created that. But the problem is, if you needed to create that, you'd have to go to the Apple store, learn how to use their tools, all of that, learn one of the most beautiful languages of all time called Objective-C, whoever created that. You have to learn all those things. And then Android came along. Actually, Android was there before iOS, technically, but it wasn't really official. And they did that. Microsoft tried for a while. I actually still think they built the best mobile operating system till date, in my personal opinion. I thought Windows Phone was light years. Windows Phone had dark mode in 2011. iPhone users are just celebrating dark mode. It had it in 2011. It had live tiles, had all these things. So it was light years ahead, but we can get into, you can ask me questions about why it failed. So if you're just starting at your startup, you want to build the next Uber in Ghana, you have to first hire somebody that knows all these skill sets. And they're not cheap. They're very expensive. And that's why even apps like Clubhouse, they would launch on iOS only. I don't know if you've heard of Clubhouse. iOS only, because it's expensive. The only reason why I know that mobile apps are expensive is the only reason I have a career. Because it's in my best interest they stay expensive, or else I'm gonna be homeless. But so that's a good thing. If you're a company like Facebook or Microsoft, you can afford to build those. You can afford to have a team. That's why when Twitter decided to create Twitter Spaces, right? Within like a month, they had Twitter Spaces on iOS and Android. So they had done more than what Clubhouse had done all that while, because they have the engineering power. So they can hire native iOS developers and Android developers, right? But unfortunately, that's not for everybody. Sometimes you actually don't even need a mobile application. So what is the case that you don't need a mobile application before we even get into like the other parts? I always say, everything you're building, assume it's for the web first. Everything you're building, just assume if it's a technical solution, it's a web solution. Just assume that first. Do you know of livescore.com? Livescore.com. Ah, see, I know the gamblers now. But, right, livescore.com for a long time didn't have a mobile app because they didn't need to. Because people were going to go to livescore.com anyways. It was no more thing. You're watching football, or if you're gambling, you're always going to livescore.com to see, is your ticket going to win or not? That kind of thing. Because they didn't need to, right? So it could work on the web. So whenever you're building a solution, just assume web first. Because with the web, you can always people can still go to the web and use a mobile app on their mobile phone, on their Chrome. The only time you'd start knowing that, okay, this might not work for the web is, number one, when you see that you need to build an app that has to do anything with media. Anything with media. It will be very difficult for Clubhouse to work as clubhouse.com. It will be very difficult for Snapchat to work as snapchat.com. Can you do it? Probably yes, but it'll be shit. It'll be very difficult for Instagram to work as just going to instagram.com. Because whenever you need to work with media, the web, unfortunately, is getting better at supporting all these features. But we're just not there yet. But what the native apps allow you to do is they allow you to directly access those fancy features. So whenever you find yourself, your app is heavy on media or anything like that has to do with like hardware acceleration, exactly. If it's a game, it's probably not going to work on the web. Again, because you need access to media devices and all of that. So this is just one thing on top of your head. We've not gotten any technical here. Just on the top of your head, you're building an app or you're a solution, some form. What am I going to do? Assume it's for the web. Okay, it's going to be media heavy. Then you pivot. But if I'm a livescore.com, I'm creating livescore.com. Okay, does it use a lot of media? No. You know why? Because most of our apps are what I call glorified lists. I can promise you 9 out of 10 apps that you use today, they're glorified lists. WhatsApp is a glorified list. It's a list you just keep scrolling. Gmail, glorified list. Twitter, glorified list. It's data, pictures, lists. 9 times out of 10, the apps we use, they're just glorified lists. They have no business if you were developing that. Then you can now start talking about all of that. So anyways.
You're not feeling very productive at home, you'd like a change of scenery, you're always welcome to the Impact Hub. For those who are not aware, Impact Hub Accra, as of April last year, we turned 8 years. And one of the things we've tried to do is just be that sort of space, that convenient spot where different conversations are had within the startup ecosystem. I think we'll hear ecosystem a lot today, this evening. But yeah, you're working on a business idea, you're looking for talent to work with, you're trying to find funding connections, anything at all, so long as you're building a venture, have a chat with us if you're having some issues and let's see what we can do. We can't guarantee results all the time, but every now and then, we've made connections and things that have worked out for people. So we're always happy to have a chat.
So let's go back to the native. Native is what allows you to really build, to the best possible level, right? You're using all the tools. You have full access to whatever that is being granted by Apple, Google, Microsoft, all these people, right? And then you also have another approach, which is what I call the hybrid approach, which is where you kind of mix the two. And that's one area that I extensively have experience on, right? So what is the hybrid approach? The hybrid approach allows you to basically, you have like a website like this, right? Now you spend a lot of money building this particular website with standard web tools, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? Now you want to have a mobile application. Traditionally, you'd have to hire someone to do iOS for you, someone to do Android for you, and so on. So that means for every new platform you need to support. Yeah, and Huawei is about to come in and mess up the whole game. Don't worry. Them Chinese people ain't playing. I promise you. I've had the conversation with them. The world is not ready for what they're coming up with. Like, we're not. Because of the whole thing with Donald Trump, yeah. Huawei is about to really come up and mess up the whole thing, and they have 1 billion people that would adopt it, unfortunately. So that's what you do. The smartwatch comes, you want to build for it, you have to support. But you're a startup. You're lucky, Kelechi and his Impact Hub people just gave you like $5,000, You ain't got money for that. But you have a working website. So what the hybrid approach allows you to do is to reuse the code that you've used for a site like this, meetup.com, and pack it up and actually get it on the App Store, which does save you a lot of time. But it's not always the correct way to go about it. It's not always the right way. So I will say, if your app is that type of like glorified list application kind of thing, yeah, you should look to go hybrid because you can reuse the same type of piece of code and have a web page. But if you're doing anything, the same concerns you would have for a web page, anything that has to do with media and everything, stay away from that hybrid approach, if that makes sense. And the web is really, really a way where, the way we use the web today, a time will come, not today, not next month, maybe not next year. You're not gonna be going to the App Store to get apps anymore. And I made this prediction sometime in 2000, I think 12 or was it 12 or 13, one of my talks. And everybody was laughing at me. And I said, the name of that talk I said is Web is the New Native. I still have it. It's on my slides.com. You can go read it. I said, web is the new native. And everyone was like, I gave the talk. Some people liked it. They're like, nah, they don't believe it. I said, soon, we're not going to be downloading apps anymore. We're just going to go to whatever.com and do whatever we need. You're not going to leave your browser. Soon, the most powerful people are people that own browsers. Google and Chrome, Safari and Apple, Mozilla with Firefox. These are going to be the next big key players. The same way we see like WeChat, one app that does everything, is the same way the browser is going to become. It's going to become not more than just an application. It's going to become like an ecosystem. I mean, we already know that browsers can be powerful because we've all suffered in the hands of Internet Explorer. Every single one of us has sentenced the founders of Internet Explorer to death so many times because we've seen when it goes bad and you have no choice. We've seen what it is. It's so bad that even though they've created an amazing browser in Edge, like you still have that PTSD of just Internet Explorer. And the funny thing is, when they were creating Edge, they wanted to change the logo. But human beings have become they synonymized Internet with the Internet Explorer logo that they had to name it something with E. Because if not, a lot of old people will go on their new Microsoft computers and they were like, where is the Internet? They're not going to know what to do. That's how deep Internet Explorer was to us. So what I said about web being the new native, you actually have There is stuff now you can do. Even those media things. Like if you actually go on Instagram.com on your phone, you can do maybe 80% of what you can do on your Instagram app. You can upload pictures, you can do all that. You may not get the same seamless experience, but you can. Now you can even go on like Twitter.com, and the Twitter will ask you, do you want to save this on your phone? So it acts like an actual application. These things are happening. That web is becoming the new native now. And I'm going to show you maybe 1 or 2 demos quickly. And now even games. There was something I saw yesterday. It's a spin-off of Photoshop. But you go to the .com. These guys are making $1 million every year. It's free. They have some premium users, obviously, ads. Some Czech Republic guy. But it's basically an alternative to Photoshop, but on the browser. You just go blah, blah, blah.com. And you can do most of the things you can do on Photoshop. Because there's something called WebAssembly that actually allows you native access level from the browser. So again, we're not going to get too technical, but the web is going to become the new native. You're going to be doing everything you can from here. And that's just how it's going to work. The same way we're carrying on. And that's why things like, I still think, I'll be interested to see what something like Chrome OS eventually becomes. Because in American schools, Chrome OS Google will sign a lot of juicy contracts. Because you're a kid, what are you going to do? You're going to go, that kind of thing. So Chrome OS is eventually going to do, we're going to be doing that. Now, majority of us, when we're doing video calls, how many of you have, apart from Zoom, have an installed video chat application? We just use Google Meet, right? Or maybe WebEx, that kind of thing, right? I actually use Whereby. Does anybody know Whereby?
What?
Whereby. Oh, I'll show you guys. So Whereby is amazing. It's all browser-based. I've been using it for a while, like years since it used to be called appear.in, but now it's called Whereby, so whereby.com. So you just go to whereby.com and then / whatever. So I've been using it from day one, so I've locked my name, Sani Yusuf, so I own that room. So you can just go whereby.com / Kobe, and then just tell somebody, meet me at whereby.com / Kobe, / Ghana, / Accra. So I'm lucky now, I actually own the Whereby. So anyone that just goes to Whereby now, and because it's a locked room, I would just get a notification that, oh, this person is knocking, and I accept them. All browser-based. No login, no sign-in, nothing. This is how I do my meetings. And you can pay for a premium that gives you like recording, up to 50 people, that kind of thing, but this is all browser-based. And I've been using this flawlessly. So whenever I have a meeting, I just go, oh, whereby.com / Sani Yusuf. That's it, because I'm the only one that can enable you to work. And so like I can just turn on my camera, for example. Like I can turn on my cam. I can have as many people as possible. I have chat. It even has a cool feature where you can, let's say you want to share a video. All of you be watching the video from there, and you all be watching the same thing. So if you wanted to share something, or like a Google Drive, you just be all collaborating there. It's really, 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 really cool. But just a few years ago, if you didn't have an app per se, right, something that was installed, you couldn't do that. But now you can. So think about it. 10 years ago, if I wanted to start this business, I had no choice but to actually build a proper app. But today, that concept has changed just because of the capabilities that we have today on the browser. I can just create this. Now, I'm going to show you a few more, maybe, yes. Yes, please, feel free. Questions, please.
So essentially, I think what I'm getting is the mobile phone is the medium through which you consume in some applications. So the Chrome app
Yes.
is another medium through which you're consuming an application on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing the mobile phone can provide is offline data.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to have that as well within the web application?
100%. So these features, that's actually the biggest reason why the web really failed offline. Once there's no internet, what happens? Chrome shows you that dinosaur game. That's as good as it gets. You play that, everybody knows the dinosaur game, right? Exactly, because it took me years to figure out it was a game. I'm like, what? How did I not know this? So all of you have been playing, the dinosaur game. But what's it called? It's so interesting because you're right, offline is huge. In fact, most people still don't do offline properly, but now on the web, you can actually do offline finally. There's APIs that the browser has exposed. So if you actually go to let's say, can I risk it? Yeah, we can risk it. So I'm going to go on Twitter, but if you see anything you don't like, please, let's just say my Twitter is a little bit of a cesspit. So let's go on twitter.com. So what a lot of people don't know is with Twitter, you can actually, how do you do this again? Is it here? Oh yes, okay, so I actually have the Twitter app installed on my desktop. But it's not an app, it's actually the web page itself. These are what you call progressive web applications. I think the Starbucks PWA. So let me just show you the Starbucks. I think it's app.starbucks.com. And you're going to start seeing that where now when you go on websites on your phone, they say, do you want to save this on your home screen, right? So you're going to see that a lot. And I think normally agree exactly. So can you see? Do you see that? What does this say? Install Starbucks. Now when you want to install an app, what do you need to do? You have to go to either, for the people that are amazing and very intelligent, you go to the Google Play Store. And for the other people, you go to something called the Apple Play Store. But you have to go there to actually access the apps. But the thing is, what a lot of you don't know is, if you pay for anything, Apple actually pays 30%. Yeah. So they had a big thing with Spotify. I think it's still ongoing, a lawsuit, because Apple's like, you have to pay us 30%. But we have this thing called Apple Music, by the way. You don't have to pay 30% there. So they're like, antitrust, like, come on. Netflix, for a while, I think Netflix had to settle. They came up with a plan, because what Netflix just did is like, this thing. I remember the first time I was submitting an Apple app to the App Store. So the app was this e-commerce platform where you had these deals, right? Like 30% off here, 40% off here, and you had access to those deals. But the problem that we were having is Apple rejected the app, saying they wanted a cut. So we were like, how the hell are we going to give you a cut of a deal? We basically come to, like, let's say Impact Hub and say we're going to host a deal that if you use this code, you'd get 20% off Impact Hub. How are we supposed to give you? We're not taking the payment, Impact Hub. So we had to explain to them, like after 2 rejections. The first one was like, our app was too ugly, but that took that personal, like, oh. And then that. So Apple does take, and Apple is notoriously bad. Like, they've ruined a lot of people's business. They can wake up and just change the laws. But that's where a lot of people started thinking, but on the web page, nobody can control you. You can just put your whatever you want to do and tell people, put a price. And that's how it should be, right? So that's what's happening now. And that's why the whole movement of something called the progressive web application. Now, if I save this here, if I click this, right, and I install, what you're going to see is, look at that. This is just like every other app on my Mac. But it's actually not an app. It's actually the web page, but it could work offline and everything. So can you see what I say by the web is becoming the new native? Because if Facebook makes an update, what do? You just go to facebook.com and you get the latest update. You don't have to like go turn on your data and all of that. That's going to work here. So this is the same thing I'm using. So soon, these icons are not going to be like Mac icons. They're going to be web pages that just happen to have an icon. Yes?
How would 5G transform this UX experience then?
I love that question. One thing that 5G would do is 5G will guarantee faster data speeds. So for example, think about like the Zoom type applications, right? That require really super throughput. Maybe if I wanted to create a Zoom competitor tomorrow, I would probably still create like a go and download Zoom type application, right? But if 5G is norm tomorrow because of super data speeds, and I'm assuming like 90% of people are using 5G, I could just go build it on the web and that kind of thing. I think it'll be interesting to see all of that. This is on top of my head, one thing I think that 5G will probably do. I could be right, I could be wrong, but I think because it's such a new technology as well, there's probably 1,001 things that I haven't even thought about. But that's such a wonderful question. I do think with that amount of quick speed, a lot of people that were thinking, oh, speed was a problem, they wouldn't think about it anymore. They would actually build for the web. So can you see how now? This is basically running in Chrome. But you can see how and you can do that on your phone. You can literally go on app to Starbucks on your phone and it will show you the same thing. Do you want to install? And when you install, it will be on your app drawer. It will look just like every other app, but it's a web application. This is why the web will eventually become the new native. And I'm guessing when they have that much power, they're going to get evil. They will get evil. It's more, yeah, they will eventually get evil. That's the thing. So maybe now is a good time to build a browser. You never know. But you can see these are some of like the progressive web apps I have on my computer. I have like a Virgin TV. I have Twitter. Like if I double click Twitter, it just opens up here natively on my Mac as any other application. And I'm getting the same experience. But this is all, so Twitter web team just wrote one piece of code and it's all working here. Does that make sense? They don't have to now hire these guys, that guys, those guys. They've just worked on that one app. And I think this is huge for startups or people that have ideas, because with that one piece of code, you can reach all these people. Before you did, you couldn't. So I think it's a wonderful thing. I'm going to, yeah, go on. I'm going to delete stuff.
How is this different from cross-platform something?
Yeah, the hybrid approach, right? It's not, this takes the hybrid approach. What the hybrid approach did is took that code, but sort of like put it in a little bucket, right? A little, like dressed it as a normal, where it's like makeup. It's like just, okay, I want to make him look like Slim Shady, like Eminem. Just going to make him up like Eminem and he's just going to walk through. But we know he's not Eminem, that kind of thing. That's what the hybrid approach does. Still use the same code, but still you have to package. You're still limited by whatever Apple or iOS are having. And for distribution, you still have to distribute via those platforms, right? You still must go to Apple and give them $100 a year, blah, 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 conform to all their laws and everything. Some of those laws are very amazing, like, child pornography and all of that. We don't want that. But now with the web, you can just distribute. Although, with what happened to Parler, which is something we're not going to get into, and AWS, that's another whole, so we're not quite sure now, which is why I said people may get evil. We're not quite sure. In the future, would an AWS be able to come and say they could? I don't think so, because if they do that, somebody else is going to create their own servers and say, come host with me. And the Russians are doing that already, saying, hey, we trust us, come give up, come, that kind of thing. And we'll eventually get there. So, questions before we finish up the demos and round up? Questions? Okay, 1 second. I just gotta click this link. Yes. We've shown the PWAs and actually, I'm trying to find a link to one of my, they've changed the website actually. So some of the features I wanted to sort of show that I probably would not be able to show, there are other features coming to the web, like access to Bluetooth, access to sharing, access to virtual reality, for example, is being developed on the web as well. So soon, when you want to do VR, you'll be able to just go to like www.vr.com. Like even you can see like Wasm Games. I can't remember this Photoshop, web Photoshop alternative. I knew I should have saved it yesterday. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, it's Photop. That's it, photop.com. That's photop.com. So another thing, we're not going to get into what WebAssembly is, but what WebAssembly does is a feature of the browser that allows you to basically have native level access and performance, right? But from the browser. So now, those limitations I was talking about media, we're already solving them. So soon, you're not going to be thinking, should I go to the web? It's just, I want to solve a problem. And every other thing. So it will become, so like this is photop.com. This is the guys that are making $1 million every single year. Their website is just running on autopilot. Like, 1 million. Right? Life is not balanced. These guys make $1 million. And if you use Photoshop, this is probably very similar. I don't really use Photoshop, so I'm terrible at art or colors or anything. And these are some WebAssembly games. Like, these are actual games that back in the days, we needed something called, who remembers Flash? That atrocious thing. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh. So yeah, look, you can like actually play games now, like actual games. So soon, when we create FIFA or Call of Duty, all right, you know all those videos of, somebody not paying attention to their wife or other half, and then someone throws the PlayStation. Well, the next few years, then we're going to have to throw the whole PC because it's going to be a problem. But what I'm saying is, we're going to be able to do these things. You want to play FIFA, you just go like FIFA.com and just connect with your friends. That's going to happen. Yes. Say it again? Google Stadia, exactly. Google Stadia kind of, I guess, it's midway. It's sort of like it's like hybrid approach, because what they're doing is they are showing you a video feed of an actual gaming instance. It's weird, but what they're doing is if you have a really fast internet connection, they are the ones hosting the game. You were just sending instructions, right? And then the game is happening in real time, and they merge the lag. But it's well on its way. Sooner or later, Google will even be hosting a Stadia. Your computer will be hosting that. Or they will just be hosting and you just go and download, that kind of thing. It's going to come. So, questions for us while we round off. And it doesn't have to do with anything we talked about today. It could be anything else, ideas, thoughts you have about building specific products. You can ask me how tall I am. I'll probably answer you too. But yeah, questions. Remember, there are no stupid questions. The only stupid one is the one that is never asked. Yes, ma'am.
So you recommend instead of building an app to use the web platform because it's one sheet of code that can easily launch someone without paying for getting on iOS or any of those other, Android too?
Yeah. To answer your question, yes. Always assume that the web is your primary point of distribution. Start with those assumptions. Of course, in today's day, we're not quite there yet where the web can do everything. And it depends if you're risky. Some people can actually see what Starbucks have done. But always assume, okay, we're going to distribute for the web. I know I need an IT solution of some sort. We're going to assume that we're distributing for the web. Then you start asking those questions like, okay, is it media heavy? Is it media heavy? Like if I'm building a Snapchat, from day one, that's media heavy. That is absolutely media heavy. So then I'll be like, no, because the web, yes, it's good with media, but I have to think about Internet Explorer users. And as someone that gets paid to support older browsers, it is not a fun job. It is not. I have to support, because I work in healthcare. And, I have to support all those browsers. So yes, a lot of people use Chrome and everything, but, so you have to start asking those questions. For example, if you're building Uber, I would not recommend that the web should be your primary method of distribution. Although a lot of people don't know, there's m.uber.com. m.uber.com. It actually saved my friend's life one time. She went to Paris. I would never really ask her what exactly happened, but let's just say she lost everything. And then I was like, okay, I have to now order you an Uber to get you to because I bought her a flight ticket. And I just think it was 2 a.m. in the morning. I didn't want to ask her, how did you get into this mess? Let's just get you back home. And if I was using the normal Uber app, I couldn't change my location, right? But the m.uber.com app allows you to put your starting point. So I was able to order her a taxi in Paris to take her to the airport. But most people are not going to use m.uber.com because the experience it provides is very different to the experience that the Uber app provides, because you're using hardware, location. GPS, any of these things, native tends to do it better. But if you were using it just the location every now and then, potentially you can distribute it out. So always assume the web, then ask those key questions. Data, GPS, not data, media, GPS. If you don't really have a firm yes in any of those, stick to the web. If any of those is a firm yes, like Snapchat.
Meaning a website, just a website.
Yes, a web application. If you're building a Snapchat from day one, media is your go-to, right? You want people to like spend crazy amounts of time sending videos that they don't want anybody else to see after 5 seconds, right? Don't ask me, I've never used it before. But that's key to the success, so it makes sense for them. Like Clubhouse, it'd be very difficult to work on the web, just because they have to think about so much more, you know.
I have one other question.
Go on.
Where do you recommend finding the right developers? Meaning not paying them X, Y, and Z upfront?
If you had the answer to that question, I would want it too. I think it's, there is no right or wrong answer to those questions because like, it depends on what you're working with, right? If you're looking, like, let's say you're looking to build a native app, no matter where you go in the world, it's going to be expensive. You know, yes, the guy in India might charge you a little bit cheaper just because of, logistics. I see you shaking your head, so there's probably an experience there that we are not going to get into.
No, I shake my head because I just started about to laugh because I want to say they know their worth now too.
Oh, well, exactly. That's happening where now, actually, Nigeria, Ghana, this is becoming the next wave of the remote offshore. Why? Because China's gone into middle class now, right? What you pay a Chinese person 20 years ago, they're going to look at you and be like, like the government could give me that kind of thing. So, globalization is doing its thing. I always say, if it's worth paying for, pay for it, right? But it's more about the person than it is actually their skill set. I seem to find that in my career where sometimes it's better to have a middle skill developer that's actually willing to do the work and learn and be honest and transparent where their limitations lie than the guy that comes in. And because I'm a consultant, I go into a lot of these companies where there's that guy that knows it all, but why am I being hired? Because he's messed everything up and he doesn't want to tell them, I don't actually know it. And I train people as well. So I go into these companies where there's always that one guy that wants to prove to the whole crowd that he knows everything. There's that. So prioritize the personal relationship with developers because then you can really see, what are they saying? Then from there you can make a decision. Because sometimes the most skilled person, maybe the person might be an asshole to work with. You're paying him a lot of money. You don't want to spend time with that type of person. Yeah. Yes?
You were talking about if you're building a media-heavy application, you typically want to go mobile first. And that got me thinking, I tend to be comfortable using YouTube on the internet or on my mobile device, just the same. The experience is the same across. Would that argument be that they essentially put in the same effort into the web as they did for their mobile application? Essentially, if you thought of web first, can you probably do it always?
Okay, so, YouTube was web first.
Correct, that's but it's media heavy.
Yes, but it's not necessarily, let me put it this way. There was exactly, YouTube, if you think about the media, it's still, I would say it's data heavy because what it's doing is, back in the days, YouTube was flash-based, right? All it's doing is accessing a piece of data, which is media data, and just presenting it to the user. But it's not really doing a lot of media manipulation. And even when you upload a video to YouTube, all that media manipulation is done on the server side. It's not happening, front end. And for those in the room that may not know the difference between front end and anything front end is just basically what's happening within your browser environment, your computer, right? So when you, like Instagram, for example, now, when you upload an Instagram and you apply those filters, that filtration is happening right there on the phone itself, Because imagine if I uploaded an Instagram picture and I had to wait for it to come back. No, so YouTube technically is actually just data heavy, if you think about it that way, because not a lot of media is just presenting the media. But even then, they kind of didn't really have a choice because we didn't even have phones at the time, right? And it wasn't always this good. There was a time YouTube was very, 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 if you lived in Africa at least, you'd have to wait for the whole thing to buffer and then you played it. Yeah, exactly. You wait for the whole thing to buffer. I can see Kobe and him are like, what is this? They have no idea what we're talking about. Anyone that's lived abroad their life, they have no idea what we're talking about. And who was crazy enough to take their cursor to the thing and was convinced that the thing was following your cursor? And that made it, yeah, right? I always, the loading thing, like the cursor, yeah. I definitely did that. I was convinced that, the cursor was following the buffer thing.
You couldn't use YouTube in some internet cafes because it will hug up.
Yeah, the whole thing. Yeah. I got banned from 2 cafes. Like, my name was written outside. There were like 3 of us, like, we're no longer allowed. I was not a very, very good kid. But yeah, questions, please.
So, if you were to define an application, what is an application? One definition. Because now you're challenging us to think of it beyond the mobile.
Yep. It's just a medium of, I would say, medium of access. Medium access to rich content or to just content. Because like I said, back in the days, we just talked of these things as websites, right? Why? What were we going there for? Text. Click, link. Exactly, HTML, link, image. The fanciest thing was the marquee. That thing that just did, that was the fanciest thing. But today, we go there to live, right? I go on Twitter. It's beyond just text now. I'm living, I'm arguing, I'm fighting, I am laughing, I'm posting, right? Exactly. I go on Gmail, I'm doing work. It's beyond just content. I go on Canva, I'm creating something. I go on Google Drive, I go on Whereby. So if you told me is Whereby a website, I'm just gonna be like, no, it's an app I use. Because why? It's giving a medium of content exchange, right? I'll still think of Facebook as is a website because primarily we still go to Facebook just to see if who's married and who's divorced and that kind of thing, right? But that's what Facebook is now. It's just because, they're still married? Oh, damn it. Damn it. Yeah, damn it. That's what we do on Facebook now, but, right? Yeah, who got the kid, the new social justice warrior, the person that suddenly cares about the planet now, that one that went vegan. Yeah, that's what we go do in Facebook. But it's more than that because, remember what's the name of Farmville? How much did they make? I think 700 million before they got, they made crazy amounts of money. Why? Yeah, it was on Facebook. They made majority of the money on Facebook. People would just go and buy virtual fertilizer. It never made sense to me. I'm like, what? People were using their money. And Candy Crush. Candy Crush ended up being bought by Activision, right? Because they were making near $1 billion. Angry Birds. But there was a time where Candy Crush was a Facebook focus, like you went on Facebook to access it. So those guys didn't see Facebook as just a website. They saw it as an app. And now the whole WeChat is taking it to a whole new level where you can do whatever, buy a wedding ring from the app. Yeah. But yeah, so that's what I see. I think the browser will eventually, and I made this prediction, and I see it happening, the browser will become this ecosystem where now it's just, you would even stop thinking about what browser do you have. The web it has to support it. The browser is just a medium of exchange. We might get into this tribal place where, I use Chrome. We might eventually get the same way, maybe, you're trying to get someone's number and they look at your Samsung and they look at you, ain't got an iPhone. It happens, I promise you. Maybe a day will come like, use Chrome? No, it's not gonna work. Safari, we don't know. Questions? Yes.
Thank you. So I wanted to focus on you in your demos and stuff. You spoke about social media, glorifying lists. What I want to focus on is e-commerce. Now, with the Twitter one, for example, you downloaded the app and it came on your
desktop.
So what about if someone, a startup actually has an e-commerce site, e-commerce workers, and they have the product listed on the website. There's a WooCommerce integration with the payment gateway. Now, if you download that, will the payment gateway still work seamlessly like as it was on?
Offline?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a technical question. I think fundamentally no, right? Because the whole point of payment is that there has to be a live connection. Although I know people are already solving that with like crypto and all of that, where maybe you might have like a offline token. I don't really know, but fundamentally, because it's a centralized system, right? It's not necessarily a web problem. It's just I guess a logistical problem, right? Like at some point, you need that to work. Yeah.
I'm asking because, as you said, we are looking into the future and we are seeing ourselves migrating from, let's say, fully like maybe Google app to having the apps on like pieces and stuff. So maybe look into the payment gateway and if we are seeing this like right now, we can actually work towards that. So we have a lot of payment gateways. Actually, don't pick the payment gateway myself, it's like
nice.
Yeah. So if we are seeing this going in that direction, and we are here now, I think if there are still being made to actually tackle that, also if there are developers that we can actually look at that and see if we can actually be able to help get that.
Yeah.
Because e-commerce, at least you mentioned people making money and stuff, and definitely money comes from commerce.
Yes.
So if we are looking at the UX tech, we should also look maybe get also to the money better. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it'll be interesting because the offline market is huge, especially in this part of the world, right? Like, I mean, look at what is happening in East Africa, right? Those guys don't have internet, but look what they do with the M-Pesa, right? It's crazy, and I think for a progressive web application, it will probably never be the case. Again, I could be wrong, right? This is just my prediction because just the logistical arrangement of what needs to work, you would have to have some form of connection. But I would not be surprised if they made maybe other ways, but I do see, I've thought about a few of them. I still see them as luxury solutions. I think it will always just be a case where there'll have to be a live wire connection for a centralized system. Else you create a whole new problem of, okay, reconciliation and all that. And I know e-commerce, like, there's a reason why I've stayed away from fintech because, look, we don't have gray hair in my family. I don't want to be the first. So the reason why I stayed from fintech, and as you can see, I have succeeded in not having gray hair. All my fintech friends looked 60 because it's like, yeah, I've stayed away from fintech. You know, I have to pick my poison. But yeah. Any final questions before we call it a day? Were you thinking about one?
About the payment cards, I think with native apps, there's a native app on the key. I think you should be able to, being enabled by the telcos, you should be able to access your wallet offline. You are not on the, you are not using data. You are using the mobile network to make those payments. So without having internet. Once you have a native app, so it enables you to be able to make use of your, but then there are certain blocks along the way which you have.
But wouldn't we still consider that online?
No, really. You are online locally on the telco, for example, MTN.
Yes.
You are using *170 through the app, not through data.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you are not on. You are within the network.
I guess that comes to the question of
So all the thing about reconciliation and everything is resolved around. So once you were able to move from the web to a native app, it enables you to be able to do things like that. I know it was there outside, but it was blocked along the way. Some of those things are.
That's interesting. It reminds me of a project we once worked on where this guy, if you didn't have internet, the thing went by SMS, so Google Maps. You say where you wanted to go, where you wanted to get to, you take those keywords, go via SMS, and then send back the API, And in fact, in my own farm in Nigeria, we've actually implemented that because I have an ag tech company in Nigeria, and we kind of like, I would say, not implemented, but we've envisioned that where for a long time, like years ago when we started the research, 5 years, 2016, we'd go to the farm and you would not have 3G internet at all. You'd start seeing edge, if you were lucky. Sometimes you saw GPRS, right? Now, that's fine if you have like a POS machine and everything like that, but you can't do anything with GPRS. But what you'd always have is 2G. Full bar. You'd make a phone call, c'est la vie, it will work. So, what I started saying is, well, I have all these sensors, and I need them to update. So we envisioned this thing where all the sensors report to this controller sensor, and pack up the data as an SMS, send it to this SMS server, the SMS server will distribute it, and everything like that. But now, we're not going to implement that solution. You know why? Because the telcos just have data. Like if the data not being available is no longer a bug. It's not a feature. Sorry, it's not like a feature. It's not a bug. Back in the days, data not available was a feature. It was like, we didn't cover this area. That's why you don't have data, right? The same thing if you open your phone and you don't see service, like nobody really plans for that because it's like the precondition is you should have service. You don't have service, there's a whole bigger problem. There's somebody else you should be suing, right? And I try to tell entrepreneurs, be very careful when you, like whose problem you're solving. Because like we say, don't drink Panadol for another person's headache. Like, don't drink Panadol for another person's headache. Because even when I was in Kaduna, we were trying to solve this one ed tech company. They were thinking about how to live exams. But what if the person's monitor goes off, blah, blah, blah. That they wanted a way where as you were answering the questions, it was updating live to the server. And I was like, why? And they were like, yes, because in case the computer goes off, we'll know where the person stopped. And I was like, if the computer goes off, you can just tell the person you have 2 hours extra to go and write the same damn exam, right? And case closed, right? Literally. And they would actually be excited. And I was like, so be careful whose problem you solve especially when it comes to offline, online. It can be, but it depends on how much money you have. All comes out time. Yeah.
Those offline solutions, in some of those bolt-on zones, try to do that to have a sort of mesh network outside the telco, which is blocked.
Eesh.
Just so that I can take information from one point to the other. So using offline.
That sounds scary and dangerous. Okay. And that my app is offline. I'm just turn off my phone. All right, are we taking final questions before we?
No, so yeah, once again, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Give it up for Sani.
Thank you. Thank you.
I guess where can we get more information about you? Follow him on Twitter. If you're a Twitter user, he's very entertaining. Twitter doesn't get him in trouble. It's all chill out, but he still talks his smack. So it's @Sani Yusuf. Right?
Yeah, Sani Yusuf everywhere.